Hey everyone, my name is Janet. Now let's dim the lights.
Oh, the horror!
I'm just gonna start every video like this. Look at this, it mists. Maybe you can't see it. Anyways, hey guys, welcome back to my channel where we talk about all things spooky, uninviting, and downright horrific. And hello to my brand new subscribers. This is pretty crazy. I don't know what happened last week, but I must have somehow tapped into the algorithm or something, because somehow I now have almost double the subscribers as I did before I posted my last video last week. So that video hit 1,000 views almost at this very moment. It's almost at 1,000. Hopefully I break that by the time I put this out. And if not, that's super awkward. If you're anything like me, you probably don't usually subscribe to channels unless they have a boatload of archive videos that you can kind of go through and get a feel for who they are. So I'm just very thankful to have all of you guys here. As a disclaimer, I don't like to take myself seriously, and I really hope that you don't either. I'm just here to provide lighthearted, digestible reviews for you guys. If you are looking for something a little bit more serious and in-depth, there are channels that do that. I'm just not one of them. I might have mentioned this already in an earlier episode, but I am so desperately trying to get the Instagram account back for Oh the Horror. I haven't taken it off my credit page yet because I am holding out hope that I can get it back somehow, because it's the only viable username. I've tried every other combination and there's no other way to get my name across other than including a bunch of underscores and dashes and periods and just making it a discombobulated mess. So I really need your advice. If anyone knows how to get back a disabled account, please let me know. I actually got an email from Instagram when they did it saying that they accidentally deleted my account, and yet there's no way to get it back. So I would really love to be able to have that, because especially as my subscribers grow, I really want to be able to connect with you guys in a different way and update you on scheduling and topics. And I just feel like it's way more interactive that way. So if you have any advice, I'm all ears. So plans for this episode have changed a little bit. I usually map out all my content for the month at the beginning of the month and just kind of decide what I'm going to review, what videos I'm going to do, whatever it may be. I had decided on a different movie that was coming out this weekend, which is why I waited. It is now, sorry if you can hear that fly. I have waited until today. It is now Sunday to record this video because I was planning to watch this movie this weekend, but I changed my mind. The movie that I was going to review is this movie called Fall, which is, I guess, kind of horrific, but I was gonna do it because it was a little bit different than a classic horror. It's about these two women who get stuck up at the top of a radio tower, and I know that I personally have a bit of a fear of heights, so I thought it'd be a fun one to do as kind of a change of pace. But as I watched the trailer for it, I realized it just doesn't really fit in the genre, and I really want to give you guys the blood and the guts and the real horror. So I am now going to review a different film. So the movie I'm going to talk about today is Prey. Now, I'm less than enthused that I'm getting this out so late in the game. I know that it's been out for, I think, over 2 weeks now, but I first and foremost just want to make sure that I'm reviewing topics and movies that I personally love. And there wasn't really anything else coming out this weekend that I was super excited about. So here we are. I had heard glowing reviews about this movie, and I finally got to watch it this weekend. It was so well received in a manner that completely transcended its genre. And even though I know it's technically an action, it's still incredible. I mean, it became Hulu's #1 premiere to date of all TV and film, and that includes the Kardashian series premiere this year, which is kind of amazing that a Predator movie could beat out the Kardashians in 2022. I mean, that's wild. One thing I actually didn't realize about the film until about a week before it came out was that it was a prequel to the Predator series. Many of you are probably familiar with the series, and I don't know about you guys, but when I thought of Predator, I always thought alien invasions and not necessarily indigenous tribes in the wilderness. And while this information is pretty easy to find with a simple Google search, especially nowadays, when the billboards started popping up around LA, none of them actually marketed it as part of the Predator franchise. I had no idea. So I did a deeper dive into this and I found some conflicting information. It is definitely part of the Predator franchise because on Hulu's website, in the logline, it explicitly says an all-new entry in the Predator franchise, but the director, Dan Trachtenberg, did an interview and he said that, in my mind, this is not a prequel movie. And he does go on to explain that what he means by that is that this isn't an origin story on how Predator came to be. And maybe there are a lot of people who are going into this thinking that that's what this is. In no way does this film explain the creation of Predator. It is simply telling the story of the first time Predator travels to Earth. Prey is set 300 years ago in the Comanche Nation, located in the northern Great Plains. It stars Amber Midthunder, who plays Naru, a fierce young warrior with something to prove. When the highly evolved predator lands on Earth to hunt, Naru and the rest of her tribe must fight to protect the future of their people. It was certainly admirable that Prey hired a Comanche producer and an almost entirely Native and First Nations cast. Not only that, but we also see indigenous female representation in the film's lead, Amber Midthunder, who plays Naru, which I learned actually means fight in Comanche. This all ties back to what I was talking about in my episode on The Innocents, where it does feel like we are starting to set a new precedent on proper representation in film in terms of sensitive subjects such as this one. But then again, we also have James Franco playing Fidel Castro, so I guess we can't win them all quite yet. I've read that the film was originally pitched entirely in Comanche, and that's really what drew Jane Myers, the producer, into the project. The final version is mostly in English, but there is Comanche in there, and Hulu liked that so much that they asked Myers, as well as some of the best Comanche translators, to work on a dubbed version in Comanche. And apparently you are supposed to watch it in that. You know, there are some dialectical nuances, I'm sure, that make the film a lot more authentic if you were to listen to it in the native language. And I do believe that they put so much care into the dubbed version of it. Final fun fact before I get into my actual review of the film, the dog in the film, whose real name is Coco, was actually adopted for the sake of the film, and she was apparently super playful and super loving, but incredibly rambunctious and a total diva to work with. And to answer your question, because it was definitely mine, I don't know where Coco is now. No one from the film has actually spoken about what happened to her after filming, but I swear to God, if she is not in a loving home, I'm coming for you, Hulu. Okay, so now on to the film itself. If you have not seen any of the Predator movies, don't even worry about it. Apparently, this is the first one to watch if you haven't seen it yet, so you're right on time. And I myself have only ever seen Predator versus Alien, and it is but a distant memory to me. And before you at me, I already know that it's not technically part of the Predator canon, and therefore I haven't really seen any of the Predator movies. Prey is the 5th movie in the proper Predator franchise. Say that 10 times fast. But chronologically, it is the first. So if you did want to watch this all in order, it would go Prey, Predator, Predators 2, The Predator, and Predators. You may want to watch Predator first to just get an idea of what the character is, just because, as the director said, there is no origin story in Prey. So if you've never seen it and you don't know a whole lot about it, you probably will be a little bit confused about the backstory. All right, I'm going to dive right into my thoughts on the film, including a couple of spoilers. Every time I do include spoilers, I really want to think about why I'm doing it and making sure that it is something worth doing. And in this case, I really do think that it is. I definitely want to lead with some examples to follow up my opinions, because they are kind of probably going to be controversial. I completely understand if you don't want anything ruined for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the timestamp up here of where you can come back to us. Because I am going to do a little wrap up of the film, including my final rating of it, and you don't want to miss it. I just want to make sure that if you are here right now, you're meant to be in the spoiler section, and if not, just back up a little bit, go to the timestamp, and it'll tell you when to fast forward to skip this whole section. There is a scene towards the beginning of the film that I want to talk about with you guys, and it's this moment where you see a mouse eat a fly, a snake eat that mouse, and Predator comes along and eats the snake. Not only is this the first time that we get a glimpse of Predator in the film, but it is also very indicative of the larger picture of the film itself. It's very much about the food chain and who's hunting who. Each character basically represents its place in the food chain. So we have the Comanche, the French trappers, and of course, Predator. There's a lot of imagery in the film that supports this idea of the food chain, the Comanche being on the bottom of it. There's one moment in particular where Naru is captured by the French trappers and she's put in a literal cage like an animal, and they're leering at her and poking her with a stick through the cage. And not only that, but her and her brother are actually used as bait for the Predator. So there are just so many indications that they are being treated like animals. Metaphors aside, these moments also plainly exemplify the threat of racism and colonization that the Comanche faced at the time. The film took place in 1719, and we're talking white, male Frenchmen here. I'm honestly surprised that there wasn't more brutality in terms of the relationship between the trappers and the Comanche, but I guess there just wasn't time for that because they're all being hunted by Predator. The trouble that I personally had with Prey was that it felt like I really had to suspend my disbelief in a lot of moments to make things work, and I just am not so keen on films that force me to do that. For example, towards the beginning of the film, she is not a great fighter, not a great hunter, and then all of a sudden she creates this kind of axe throwing weapon, and in a matter of one montage becomes this incredible kung fu killing machine. And I think it just robs us of that satisfaction of watching her overcome something, like learning how to fight and learning how to hunt, and it just kind of happened in a snap. Another example is there was a moment where Naru falls in this quicksand-like mud pit, and she's sinking into it and needs to find a way to get herself out. Her dog is nowhere to be seen. She has to throw her axe device into this dam ahead of her and kind of lodge it so that she can create tension on the rope to drag herself out. And it really feels like we sit there for a good 5-10 minutes just watching her do this over and over again and failing, but it just feels like she has way too much time to do this, whereas later in the movie, when the mud pit is reintroduced, the character that falls in is gone in 0.75 seconds. She also survives a one-on-one bear attack, and her dog will just mysteriously vanish and then reappear in a super clutch moment when she needs some assistance. And there's a scene at the end of the film that I'm not going to completely give away, but if you've seen the film, all I'm going to say is bullets don't ping pong off of one tree, let alone 5 trees. But hey, I'm no expert. Okay, so maybe those examples are a little nitpicky, I will admit to that. But what about the fact that the Predator is only seeking out its biggest threat and doesn't consider Naru that, even after several occasions of her trying to attack him with weapons, and yet somehow these oafish old white men are considered threatening? Is it all just because she's a woman? Like, I don't understand that. If you're joining us again, welcome back. All you really missed was my disputable ranting. But to catch you guys all up with a final hot take, I just don't understand how this film got as much praise and attention as it did. Sorry. That is not to say that this isn't a good film and that there weren't redeeming qualities of it, because there were, especially on the production side. I think this is a huge step in the right direction in terms of accurately portraying Indigenous people in film. I think they did a wonderful job of that, and kudos to everyone on the film. My only real gripe with the film was that it was just a touch predictable. It felt very much like an R-rated Disney movie that followed the classic Cinderella story arc that just went like this. And you know what? That's totally okay, and there's nothing wrong with that, and it's worked for many a year. Listen, if I had seen this movie the night it came out and hadn't been so biased by everything that I've read and hearing all these great things afterwards, I probably wouldn't have had such high expectations for it, and therefore wouldn't have felt so underwhelmed by it. I'm going to try to rate this one as objectively as possible without the media bias, and I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. It's certainly worth watching, so if you have not seen it yet, go check it out on Hulu and maybe even watch it in the Comanche dubbed version. If you've already seen the movie, I would love to know what you think, so leave a comment below. And if you loved it, please don't hate me for my review. I still think that it was a good movie. And if you're new here or you just recently subscribed, thank you for being here with me. And if you've been here from the rocky beginning and you've been stumbling through this with me, I appreciate you so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you liked it and you want to subscribe to it. See you next week.